In the gray morning veiled with mist, as the wind gently stirred the treetops along the road leading to the Dupree estate, Ashley stood still in the room where weak sunlight filtered through the glass window. She no longer cried, yet her eyes remained swollen and her trembling hand clutched the ring she once believed to be the symbol of eternal love. Derek had betrayed her, not only breaking a promise but shattering her faith in the most sacred thing she had ever held dear. She placed the ring on the table, and the dry, metallic sound as it struck the wood echoed like the end of an illusion. No words were needed. No reproach. The silence between them said it all. Jan, her mother, witnessed the scene with a heart heavy as stone. She too had been a woman marked by wounds, once enduring a similar betrayal in her own past. Now, watching her daughter step into the same spiral of pain, Jan felt both compassion and helplessness, as if she were seeing her younger self reflected in Ashley's tearful eyes. Yet she knew some truths cannot be undone, and pity is meaningless when trust is already dead. Naomi appeared like a gentle breeze in that suffocating stillness. The loyal friend who knew better than anyone how fragile Ashley became when faced with love's cruelty. Naomi wanted to help, to lift her friend out of the emotional abyss, but deep inside, she harbored a quiet fear, the fear that sometimes, revealing the truth might destroy more than it saves. Because Naomi knew. Love, no matter how pure, always comes at a price. The tragedy began to branch into darker paths when Ashley realized something far more terrifying than Derek's betrayal. Andre, her former lover, was now the husband of Dani, her own mother. A tangled web of love, blood, and guilt. She no longer knew where right ended and wrong began, where punishment ended and redemption began. How could any daughter accept that the man who once held her heart now lay in her mother's arms? Ashley felt as though she were drifting through a fevered dream. Everything inside her was overturned. She was disgusted with herself for still feeling something at the mere sound of Andre's name, disgusted that her heart refused to extinguish what reason had already condemned. At night, she stayed awake until exhaustion blurred her thoughts, staring into the mirror, whispering to her reflection, "Who am I in all these lies?" Andre, on the other side of the story, fared no better. Life with Dani seemed peaceful, yet beneath that calm lay layers of dreadful silence. He knew Dani was a good woman, kind, patient, full of grace. But a corner of his soul still clung to an old shadow, the memory of Ashley, her eyes, her voice, their reckless but sincere youth. When the message from Ashley arrived, just a few words asking to meet, Andre's heart tightened painfully. He did not want to betray Dani, but he could not ignore the echo of the past calling him back. Dani saw the hesitation in her husband's eyes. She understood that no one truly escapes the darkness within themselves. She told Andre to go, her voice soft as wind, yet behind it was a quiet storm. Was it forgiveness, or a test? Even she did not know. Perhaps she wanted to believe her love was strong enough to hold him, or perhaps she simply needed to see, once and for all, the truth behind the man she trusted. The meeting took place in a park, the same one that had once witnessed their love. No words, only glances. Ashley spoke through the trembling of her heart, through silences heavy with regret. Andre looked at her and saw his own youth, his mistakes, but also the fragile happiness he could not bear to lose. The meeting was not meant for reconciliation, but for closure. Yet humans, when standing before what once burned brightest in their hearts, rarely leave without scars. Rumors spread like wildfire. The elite whispered, social media raged with judgment. Andre was branded a traitor. Ashley a homewrecker. Dani either a saint of forgiveness or a fool in denial. The gossip crept into every dinner party, every sideways glance, every polite greeting. Their world began to fracture, quietly, from the smallest of cracks. Dani said nothing. She immersed herself in work, launching her new charity project, Forrester Creations, as a way to stay busy, to drown out the sound of her breaking heart. Yet at night, when Andre entered the room, her eyes sometimes drifted away. She still loved him, but that love was now poisoned with suspicion. Jan, the seasoned mother, saw it all. She knew these knots could not be untied easily. She wondered if she had any right to intervene, knowing her own marriage had once been destroyed by betrayal. Her silence was not acceptance, it was surrender to her own helplessness. Meanwhile, Naomi, the outsider, was the one who held the darkest secrets. She knew Derek's betrayal wasn't just about love, but money. There was a hidden contract, an investment cloaked in deceit. Derek was merely a pawn in a far greater scheme. Naomi hesitated whether to reveal or conceal because she knew truth could sometimes kill more mercilessly than lies. Andre began to suffocate under the pressure. He tried to prove his loyalty to Dani, yet every time he saw Ashley at charity events, in brief encounters, his heart betrayed him. Dani noticed. Quietly, perceptively, she began to observe. She didn't confront him, but every glance, every hesitation, she stored deep within her. One evening, Dani returned to the old park, the place she knew Andre and Ashley once met. Hidden in the shadows, she saw them again. Nothing indecent, just a light touch, an unspoken connection. But to Dani, that was enough. She turned away, no tears, only a bitter smile. Perhaps she had known this ending long before it arrived. From then on, their relationship became a silent battlefield. Andre sought redemption through silence, while Dani answered with deliberate distance. Ashley became a ghost. Belonging nowhere, trapped between regret and longing. Derek lost everything, his career, his reputation, and finally, himself. Naomi began receiving anonymous threats, as if someone wanted to keep the financial truth buried. Jan sank into guilt, realizing all this chaos stemmed from a mistake she made years ago, a forgotten contract, a single decision that bound them all in chains. And just when everyone believed the storm had passed, an anonymous letter arrived at Dani's office. Inside were photos of Andre and Ashley at the park, with a chilling note, "Every secret has its price." Dani stared at the picture for a long time before burning it. She understood that silence was not forgiveness. It was patience. Ashley, once again, stood before the mirror, holding the old ring she still kept, not out of love, but as a reminder that every promise can become a shackle. Naomi vanished from the city for a while. Derek sold his shares and disappeared quietly. Andre and Dani still lived together, yet no one knew how much love remained between them or if it was just a facade for the world to see. Jan, sitting by her window, thought about the years gone by. She understood that sometimes beyond the gates was not a place, but a state of mind, a boundary one crosses when faith is gone, and only the truth of one's own darkness remains. The story closed in eerie silence. Yet beneath that calm, another plot was already being woven. Who was truly behind the letters, the rumors, the manipulation? Did Dani really forgive, or was she waiting for the perfect moment to strike back? And Andre, did he still have the courage to protect the fragile love that guilt and time had already stained? No one had the answer. Only silent eyes, unsaid words, and the whisper of wind through the iron gates, where everyone kept their own door half closed, waiting for the day it would open to reveal what no one dared to face. In the months that followed, everything within the Dupree estate seemed to return to normal. Breakfast was still served on time, charity meetings still took place, and greetings were still polite enough for outsiders to believe that life there was the picture of calm refinement. But behind those composed smiles were hearts grown cold and calculations quietly waiting for their moment to strike. Dani continued her work on the Forrester Creations project, but she was no longer the gentle woman she once was. She observed everything with a calmness so measured it was frightening. Every person around her, Andre, Ashley, Naomi, even Jan, had become a piece in a game she had never intended to play, but now was forced to master. She had learned one thing: kindness saves no one in a world where everyone wears a mask. Andre still lived beside her, yet the invisible distance between them widened like a crack spreading across glass. He didn't know how much Dani truly knew, whether she still trusted him, or was merely waiting for the right moment to destroy him silently. That fear made him cautious. Every move, every gesture weighed with suspicion. At night, when Dani slept, Andre would look at her face and feel his chest tighten at the sight of her serene but hollow expression. He realized that sometimes, silence was far more terrifying than accusation. Ashley, after vanishing from all public events, returned with a newfound strength and confidence. She began entering the world of business, something she had never planned before. Some said she was burying her pain in work, but the truth was different. Ashley had a purpose. She wanted to uncover the truth behind the shadowy financial contracts linked to Derek. The man she discovered still maintained hidden connections with a mysterious investment network tied to none other than Forrester Creations. The coincidence unsettled her. Had Derek's betrayal been driven by greed alone,
or had he been a pawn in a far larger scheme, one that involved Dani herself?
On sleepless nights, Ashley sat in her new apartment, staring out the window at the city lights, her mind clouded with doubt. She missed Andre, yet she feared that returning to him would drag her into something far more dangerous than love.
Naomi returned to the city in silence.
No one knew where she had gone during the past 3 months, only that she came back changed, her eyes sharper, her demeanor that of someone who had seen unspeakable things. She went to Ashley and handed her a folder. Copies of contracts, photos, and bank transfers linking Derek, a shell corporation, and a bank account under Dani Dupree's control.
Naomi didn't explain how she obtained them. She only said one thing: no one in this story is innocent.
From that moment, Ashley began to doubt everything.
Was Dani truly the betrayed wife or the puppet master behind it all?
If that were true, then Andre was merely another pawn in her hands, and Derek, the man who once loved Ashley, was just a casualty in a dark financial game. The truth, once exposed, always cuts both ways. Ashley began her own secret investigation, gathering evidence piece by piece, venturing deeper into a maze where she no longer knew who was leading her or to where.
Meanwhile, Dani remained silent.
She knew someone was watching her, knew that shadows lingered near the house, but she showed no fear. She merely smiled faintly each time an anonymous envelope arrived filled with photos, documents, and evidence that served more as warnings than threats. Dani had long moved past fear. Perhaps she knew exactly who was behind it all, or worse, she had orchestrated everything herself, testing the loyalty of those around her. Jan, upon discovering Dani's link to the secret contracts, tried to contact her former son-in-law, Derek. She believed he was the only one who could piece together the fragments of truth. But Derek was no longer the charming man he once was. He lived in paranoia, hunted by the very people he had once worked with. When Jan finally found him, he could only whisper a few cryptic words about a plan that got out of control before disappearing without a trace.
News of Derek's disappearance spread quickly, and once again, all eyes turned toward Dani.
Some whispered that she had ordered his removal to silence him. Others speculated that Ashley, driven by vengeance, had pushed him toward his demise.
Naomi said nothing, but she knew the truth hadn't even begun to surface. One evening, as Dani prepared for the Forrester Creations charity gala, a black envelope was placed on her dressing table. Inside were photos of Andre and Ashley together and a secret contract bearing Dani's signature at the bottom. Dani merely closed her eyes for a moment, then folded the paper. Not out of surprise, but because she understood, the game was nearing its end. That night, the gala unfolded in lavish elegance. The lights glittered across faces that hid their pasts beneath poise and perfection. Dani took the stage, delivering a speech about compassion, trust, and integrity. Below, Andre watched her, unsure whether to feel pride or dread. Ashley was present too, calm on the outside but storming within. Naomi lingered in the shadows at the back of the hall, observing everything. She knew that one small misstep could bring everything crashing down. As Dani stepped off the stage, a waiter handed her a phone. On the screen played a shaky video. Derek, confined in a dimly lit room, his voice hoarse. It all started with Dani. She knew everything. Before the video cut out, Dani smiled. The smile of someone who has just watched the world collapse and found it inevitable. The next morning, the headline screamed, "Forrester Creations under investigation for money laundering. Dani Dupree missing. Andre summoned for questioning. Ashley branded by the media as the only one still standing." Naomi received one final envelope. Inside, a photo of Dani at an airport, with a scrawled message: "The truth is only one part of the story. What will you do with the rest?" Ashley sat alone in the room where it had all begun, staring past the iron fence outside. Everyone was gone, leaving only memories behind. She didn't know whether Dani was a betrayer or a martyr. Andre, still around, was just a shadow lost between two women. Naomi vanished once again. Jan, with dark circles beneath her eyes, lit candles every night, praying that someday, the spirits of love and deceit would finally find peace. But the gates still stood silent, locked, waiting for another hand to open them. Beyond those gates, was there truth or just another layer of endless conspiracy? No one knew. Only the wind moved through the trees, carrying whispers of words left unsaid, sins unatoned, and hearts that had